Is this the best video game in the world?
Definitely it is.
Halo. So let me tell you, Halo 3.
Sum it up for us.
Amazing.
It's exhilarating, man. It's an experience. I'm glad to be here.
Can you just tell us real quick, why is Halo so much more of a cultural phenomenon than any other video game in the world?
I don't know, so many people care. Halo Nation is huge. The combination of all the elements, great gameplay, great story, great characters, I mean, things that people really care about. And that's, it's not just an ordinary game, but it's really a piece of entertainment art.
Back in 2007, the hype for Halo 3's release was unreal. People lined outside of any store that sold Halo 3, as well as the Xbox 360. I was born in 2007, and instead of doing lame baby stuff, I should have really been playing Halo 3. Halo 3 was to be released on the Xbox 360, the next generation of Xbox, and with this came the freedoms of better technology. Without having to worry about the limitations of the original Xbox, Bungie could implement a graphical upgrade over Halo 2. More expansive locations, and more cinematic moments in the campaign. And all of these things were all but confirmed with the release of this trailer. Halo 3's marketing campaign as a whole was stunning, with the tagline at the end of all of them being, "Believe." These trailers are what many consider to be the best gaming trailers of all time, myself included. So how did Bungie finish off the mainline Halo trilogy? Did it go out with a bang, or did it fail to live up to expectations? This is episode 3 of my Halo video series. In the last 2 episodes, we analyzed the story, gameplay, and multiplayer of Halo 1 and 2. This episode will be going over Halo 3, the end of Bungie's mainline Halo trilogy. Halo 3 starts almost right where Halo 2 left off. If you watched my last video, or if you've completed Halo 2, you would know that Halo 2 ended on a cliffhanger where Master Chief boards a Forerunner ship that the Prophet of Truth is also on. The ship arrives at Earth and starts to burn up in its atmosphere. A piece of the ship breaks off and heads towards the camera. Cortana is also heard explaining why she chose the Master Chief to work with.
You had something they didn't. Something no one saw but me. Can you guess? Luck.
It then cuts to morning, where Sergeant Johnson and his group of Marines find Master Chief presumably unconscious. We realize that he was on the broken part of the ship and he crashed down on Earth in a fiery blast. This is almost a callback to Halo Combat Evolved, where in that game the Master Chief crashes down into the first Halo ring in a drop pod and somehow survives. Though I shouldn't really be saying somehow, especially when the Master Chief is wearing armor that weighs half a ton, which is something I really haven't mentioned until this point in the series. What is the Master Chief? The Master Chief, or otherwise known as John 117, is a Spartan, a genetically modified super soldier. He is stronger, faster, and smarter than the average Marine in every way. He is a Spartan too, which was a program where the UNSC were still experimenting with the genetic enhancements of the Spartan program, and most subjects did not survive this process. We see Sergeant Johnson and a squad of Marines around the Master Chief, who is seemingly unconscious. He then wakes up unexpectedly. A good thing to mention is that the Arbiter is also with this squad of Marines. The last time the Chief and the Arbiter saw each other was when they were being commanded by Gravemind to stop the Covenant from lighting the ring. So they were working together, but not really, because the Arbiter still kind of believed in the Great Journey. The Chief sees the Arbiter camouflaged, which was probably so the Chief didn't freak out that there was an elite behind them, but he still finds him anyway and holds a pistol up to his mouth. Sergeant Johnson tells the Chief that he's on the other side now, and Chief hesitates before backing off the Arbiter. In the second mission, the first one being Arrival, which was a cutscene, Sierra 117 sees you running and gunning the Covenant in a forest. In this mission, since the elites broke off from the Covenant, you get to fight primarily brutes this time instead of elites. Of course, there are grunts and jackals also here as well. The third mission is Crow's Nest, and this is where I have some criticisms for Halo 3. The cutscene that starts the mission off has some interesting writing choices.
Ma'am, squad leaders are requesting a rally point. Where should they go?
To war.
Miranda Keyes in this game is not as bold as she was in the last game. It doesn't play as big as a part as she did in Halo 2. Same goes for the Arbiter, where he barely even talks in this game, as opposed to us playing as him and having an emotional attachment to him in the last game. He's kind of just there, as opposed to having a full-on story arc in Halo 2. In this mission, you go around a UNSC base being invaded by the Covenant. The plan is to arm a bomb and evacuate the base. The fourth mission, Savo Highway, sees you riding along the Savo Highway in a Warthog. One thing that Halo 3 does exceptionally well is the large-scale vehicle battles. Seeing multiple Warthogs all attacking some wraiths, with Banshee shooting you overhead is just so cool. The fifth mission, The Storm, sees your first encounter with a Scarab. In Halo 2 we got the ability to board the Scarab and take it out, but it felt more like a set piece than an actual enemy. In Halo 3 you get to fight an actual Scarab, green laser and all. The way you take out the Scarab is by shooting the legs with a rocket launcher or a missile pod so that the Scarab will lower itself so you can board it. There are a lot of Covenant on the Scarab, so you have to take them out before shooting the core. You destroy it and go further into the mission.
Get away! It's gonna blow!
Stay with him! Stay with him! Time for medicine!
We also found out what Truth was trying to find on Earth all along, a portal that takes him directly to the Ark. You take out an AA gun, AA standing for anti-air, and the mission ends with a cutscene.
Regroup. Wherever Truth went. Sir, new contact slipping in.
What is it? More brutes?
Worse.
The sixth mission, Floodgate, sees you fighting through waves of flood, while you backtrack through the area in the previous mission, which has now been taken over by the Flood. The Flood is relatively the same as Halo 2, but with some new additions. We find the crash ship that the Flood used to come to Earth, and go inside of it. At the end of Halo 2, Cortana was kind of captured by Gravemind, so the Chief and Cortana have been separated for some time. We see visions of Cortana in most of Halo 3's missions, and she says some very interesting things. In the seventh mission, the Ark, takes place on, well, you guessed it, the Ark. If you remember from my last episode, at the end of Halo 2, 343 Guilty Spark mentions that all of the Halo rings are made and controlled from the Ark. The Ark is also where the Prophet of Truth is going to activate the rings using a remote detonation. This mission is cool because of its setting. It's in a large desert, which is something we haven't seen before in Halo, and with it having a flat landscape, more large-scale battles are to be fought in this mission. The cartographer for the Ark is where we can find the Prophet of Truth. In the eighth mission, the Covenant, we try to stop Truth from firing the rings. Truth locks himself in a part of the Ark using 3 towers that make a shield barrier around him. Our plan is to disable the towers and stop Truth. Chief disables one tower, the Arbiter disables another, and Sergeant Johnson disables the last one. Johnson gets captured by Truth in the last tower and tries to force Johnson to light the rings because, if you remember from the last episode, a human is the only one to light the rings. Miranda Keyes crashes her ship in the tower and kills most of the brutes. Johnson tells her to kill them both so that the Covenant won't have a human to light the rings. Truth shoots Miranda in the back and kills her. The Chief and the Arbiter arrive at the tower, but not before the Flood do as well. Gravemind speaks through the Flood and tells them,
Do not shoot, but listen. Let me lead you safely to our foe. Only you can halt what he has set in motion.
So now the Flood, Chief, and the Arbiter are working together to stop Truth. When we confront Truth, he has been partially infected by the Flood, but Truth has already forced Sergeant Johnson to start the firing sequence for the Halo rings. The Arbiter gets his ultimate revenge and kills Truth.
I am The voice of the Covenant! Asshole. You must be silenced.
The Flood then turns on us, and the Arbiter makes a good point.
Corpses shift and offer room. A fate you must abide. We trade one villain for another.
Johnson, the Arbiter, and Chief flee from the Flood, and the Chief and Arbiter seize the Ark, making another Halo ring. Chief has a good plan, which is to light the ring the Ark is making in replacement of the first Halo ring they destroyed. Kill the Flood on the Ark, and make it out alive. Remember that one Halo ring has a large blast radius, but firing them all can kill everything in an entire galaxy. The Arbiter asks,
How will you light
it? And the Chief looks towards the crashed High Charity. The 9th mission, Cortana, is where you enter the Flood-infected High Charity to find Cortana, which has the index to light the ring. The gist of the mission is that we fight hordes among hordes of Flood and make it closer and closer to Cortana. Cortana has been spending all this time in High Charity with Gravemind, so she starts to kind of malfunction. When we find her, we get a really heartfelt moment between the two.
A little souvenir I hung on to, just in case. Got an escape plan?
Thought I'd try shooting my way out. Mix things up a little.
Just keep your head down. There's 2 of us in here now, remember?
We make it out High Charity with the Arbiter arriving right when we are about to leave to ensure the Chief and Cortana are safe. We blow up High Charity and land on the newly created Halo ring. The last and final mission of Halo 3 is simply called Halo. We land on the ring and fight some Flood before going to the control room. Guilty Spark tells Johnson that the ring cannot fire now, and we need to wait a couple of days. Sergeant Johnson says that we don't have a couple of days and it needs to happen now. Then this happens.
Unacceptable! Unacceptable! Absolutely unacceptable! Protocol dictates action! I see now that helping you was wrong! You are the child of my makers, inheritor of all they left behind. You are Forerunner. But this ring is mine.
A boss battle between Guilty Spark and Chief ensues, and the only way to defeat him is to grab Johnson's Spartan Laser, a large weapon that shoots out a red beam to destroy Guilty Spark. After the fight, we get possibly the saddest moment in all of Halo.
I'm getting you out of here.
No, you're not. No, don't let her go. Don't ever let her go. Send me out with a bang.
Chief, I'm so sorry.
We start the firing sequence and plan to explode the ring in the Ark so that the Halo rings will be deactivated. We get into a Warthog and have the most famous Warthog run of all the Halo games. We drive all around the ring as it starts to explode all around us, and if you're playing co-op with another person, it makes this mission even better. The end of this mission very closely resembles the end of Halo 1. We make a large jump into a large ship that was waiting for us, the Forward Unto Dawn, and We make a large jump into a large ship that was waiting for us, the Forward Unto Dawn, and board the ship.
Got it, Chief! Jump! Floor it! Right into the hangar!
Arbiter goes to the cockpit to pilot the ship while the Chief is in the lower part of the ship having some trouble staying on. The ship snaps in half as the slipspace portal closes.
If we don't make it,
We'll make it.
it's been an honor serving with you, John.
Returning the Arbiter to Earth on one half of the ship, and the Chief goes to a place in space on the other half. Lord Hood holds a funeral for all the people that died during the war, and it is assumed that the people think the Chief is dead. But we then see Master Chief floating around the broken ship. He then gets into a cryopod and the game, as well as the trilogy, ends.
But you did it. Truth and the Covenant, the Flood, it's finished.
It's finished.
I'll drop a beacon, but it'll be a while before anyone finds us. Years, even. I miss you.
Wake me when you need me.
The gameplay of Halo 3 is what I envision to be peak Halo gameplay. It's a culmination of what Bungie has learned throughout the course of Halo 1 and 2. Let's start with what they've changed. The battle rifle in Halo 3 is a little less overpowered as it was in Halo 2. It's definitely still viable, but the damage output is not as heavy as Halo 2's was. Dual wielding is still here, but it feels more like a gimmick. In Halo 2, sure, some dual wielding combinations were overpowered, but in my opinion, it really wasn't that bad. But in Halo 3, dual wielding doesn't feel as good as it did in Halo 2. A huge addition to Halo 3 was the assault rifle. The assault rifle wasn't in Halo 2, and we haven't seen it since Halo 1. The assault rifle adds its fair share of changes as well. To start off, the 60-round magazine from Halo 1 has been cut to 32 rounds. The model of the rifle is changed as well, sporting a less bulky model. This makes sense why the two rifles are different, because they are totally different models. The Halo 1 assault rifle was the MA5B, while the Halo 3 assault rifle is the MA5C. Also, the fire rate is considerably slower than Halo 1's, likely due to it having half the magazine size. While the Halo 1 assault rifle felt like an absolute powerhouse, Halo 3's take on it feels more balanced and makes the perfect starter weapon for multiplayer. But probably the largest and most iconic addition to Halo 3 Sandbox was the Gravity Hammer. The Gravity Hammer is a melee weapon used by the Brutes. This weapon kind of opposes the Energy Sword, which is also a weapon that made it over from Halo 2. In a way, this makes it feel more like the Brutes are totally opposite from the Elites. And I mean, they kind of are. The hammer can smack down and it does a lot of area of effect damage, meaning if you are in close vicinity with multiple enemies, you can do considerable damage to all of them. The hammer is a one-hit kill, like the sword, and can do a lot of damage even if someone is somewhat far from you. The design is very brutal, which is kind of the Brute style. New vehicles have been added like the Chopper, a Brute vehicle that opposes the Ghost, the Hornet, which is a flying vehicle that opposes the Banshee, and one vehicle that did not appear anywhere in the campaign and only appeared on one multiplayer map. In the map Sand Trap, a large UNSC vehicle can be seen on the side of the map. At the time, most people thought it wasn't drivable, but lo and behold, you can actually drive it. The vehicle is called the Elephant, and if you somehow flip over this beast of a vehicle, you'll get this cool little Easter egg that says this. Overall, Halo 3's gameplay is the most fun gameplay in the series, and its weapons and vehicles are fun, creative, and balanced for both multiplayer and campaign. Halo 3's multiplayer is possibly the most fun you can have out of any of the Halo games. The maps were where I think Bungie peaked in its design. Maps in Halo 3 kind of have two categories. Smaller maps are geared towards being more competitive, while larger maps are geared towards being more for the casual audience. Make no mistake that these maps weren't fun just because they were more competitive. Guardian, The Pit, Orbital, and Blackout are some of the most fun I've ever had in Halo 3. But if I want to play more casual and just have a ton of fun, I play on big maps like Sandtrap, Construct, Narrows, Valhalla, and so much more. But one feature that Halo 3 had that once again changed the gaming world back then was Forge. Forge is a game mode where you can actually make custom maps. This map builder was revolutionary, especially for it being on console. These Forge maps could be used in custom games, which if you remember from the last episode, was where you could make your own game mode, and with this combination came almost infinite amounts of fun. Many people, myself included, have many memories playing in Forge built maps in custom games and just having a ton of fun. Not to mention the social aspect of Halo 3 was just perfect, and it's something that we don't see in a lot of multiplayer games today. After you played a multiplayer game, if you didn't leave the match, you would go into another match with the same people you just played with, which formed friendships as well as rivalries. So many people made friends through Halo 3, and I wish we could see more social features in modern multiplayer games. Another thing to mention in Bungie's acknowledgement towards a certain game mode that we talked about in the last episode was
Infection.
Bungie actually made Infection a full functioning game mode in matchmaking, and it shows the lengths that Bungie would go for the community, which is another thing we don't see in not only modern multiplayer games, but multiplayer games in general. I consider Halo 3 to be the best multiplayer in the series, and it's easy to see why this was Bungie's prime. This game was just something else. To its simplistic art style, its deep and rich storytelling, its perfection of gameplay, and its multiplayer being a mix between a party game and a competitive one. This game showed that Bungie's overzealous ambition worked out in the end, and the passion that they put into these games was unreal. I don't think there will ever be a trilogy as great as Halo 1, 2, and 3. It's good to know that Halo 3 put a neat bow on the trilogy and ended it off with a bang.